President Donald Trump is raising eyebrows in Taiwan after he recently concluded his state visit to China. He called the self-governing island a difficult problem for the U.S. because of China's military power and geographic closeness. In an interview to Fox, Trump said that Xi Jinping had told him not to support the self-ruling island.
And it's not a takeover. They just don't want to see this place, we'll call it a place because nobody knows how to define it, but they don't want to see it go independent. They don't want to do it.
Trump made it clear that he opposed a declaration of independence by Taiwan, which is 9,500 miles away from the U.S., adding that he is neutral about taking sides when it comes to Taiwan's potential confrontation with China. Trump went on to say that the island nation was small, both in terms of geography and military prowess.
Should the people of Taiwan feel more or less secure after your meetings with President Xi?
Neutral. Neutral.
Has the policy changed at all?
No, nothing's changed.
U.S. policy?
No, nothing's changed. I will say this. I'm not looking to have somebody go independent and, you know, we're supposed to travel 9,500 miles to fight a war. I'm not looking for that.
Trump suggested that he was not looking to have wars, suggesting if the status quo was maintained, China would be okay with Taiwan. He assured that China will not take military action against Taiwan as long as he is president.
With me, I don't think they'll do anything when I'm here. When I'm not here, I think they might, to be honest with you.
Taiwan's foreign ministry has taken note of Trump's remarks regarding the island and has issued a subtle retort as it referred to Taiwan as a sovereign democratic country.
I think what I am saying is that the Republic of China is a sovereign and independent country. I think this is a very clear fact. We and the People's Republic of China are not subordinate to each other, and only the 23 million people of Taiwan can decide our own destiny through democratic means. I think this is something that does not change. Taiwan, in this region, is committed to maintaining peace and stability in the Taiwan Strait and regional security.
Taiwan also reacted to Trump's comments on weapons sale, which has been opposed and discussed by Trump and Xi Jinping. It said that the U.S. arms sales to Taiwan are part of U.S. security commitments under the Taiwan Relations Act and thanked Trump for extending support for peace and stability across the Taiwan Strait. Although the U.S. lacks formal diplomatic relations with Taiwan, it remains the island's most important international supporter. The U.S. primarily provides Taiwan with defensive weapons and military support through sales rather than large-scale free grants or aid. In December last year, the U.S. State Department approved $11 billion worth arms package to Taiwan. This included sale of high-mobility artillery rocket systems and related equipment and self-propelled howitzers and related equipment. The U.S. also approved the sale of all-TS drone systems, FGM-148 Javelin anti-tank missiles and optically tracked wire-guided missile systems. However, Trump has now told reporters that he has not yet made up his mind whether a new U.S. sale to Taiwan can move forward. Currently, a large arms package is in advanced stages and has been awaiting formal notification to Congress. While in May 2026, Taiwan's legislature approved $25 billion in special defense funds, largely earmarked for U.S. weapons purchases. Joining us from London is Mr. Greg Swenson. He is an international affairs expert and a China analyst. Swenson, good to see you and thank you very much for your time. What do you make of this visit by the President of the United States to China? Because many did think that it will not have any results. What is your take?
Yeah, I really agree with that statement. I think that, you know, no news is good news when it comes to these types of summits. And, you know, rule number one is in presidential summitry is, you know, with an adversary is to do no harm. And I think, you know, yes, I agree that there weren't a lot of credible outcomes from the summit. But on the other hand, you know, we're not disappointed in that because we just, there's a certain relationship to maintain, but we surely don't want to make or see the president make concessions to the CCP that we would regret later. And so I think the fact that nothing serious came out of this is probably a good thing.
Well, talking about nothing serious came out of it, maybe Taiwan could be another topic of discussion, because before the president headed to China, Taiwan was the main focus, and now, now that the president says that China or President Xi Jinping insisted that he not talk about China, and now President Trump is saying that Taiwan should not, make its independence known or visible. What do you make of Trump's comments?
Yeah, I think that the president's comments are consistent with U.S. comments over the last, the last 80 years, frankly. And so there's this term called strategic ambiguity, which doesn't really mean much, and it basically suggests that we don't want to go too far in support for Taiwan, and that's why we don't have official relations, as you mentioned. But on the other hand, we're selling them, or at least I hope we continue to sell them, lots of arms. So obviously we support them, but and I say we, not just President Trump, but the past presidents, are very careful not to go too far, because we just want to maintain some diplomacy with both countries.
Mm-hmm. So the relationship between the United States and Taiwan, do you actually think it's in a limbo, or something will happen? Because President Trump says that nothing will happen between China and Taiwan when he is president. But when he's not,
that's right.
But when he's not, he says that something may happen.
Well, yes, because China, or the CCP, has been threatening this for generations, but especially in the last decade. And so, again, nothing's really changed in terms of comments, right? The president was pretty consistent with presidents past. Taiwan, of course, maintained their independence and announced that they're, a democratic country and independent. And of course, Xi is always going to say that they should be part of China. And so this is not really news. This is just almost reiterations of comments from all three countries over the last few decades. So, I think the only change that could possibly come is if there was as President Trump suggested, when he's out of office, and there's especially a Democrat in office, there's a much higher probability that Xi would make a move on Taiwan. But I don't think that's likely during President Trump's term. And again, these are all consistent policy statements from all three countries that are really unchanged. I think the only thing that could change is if President Trump vetoed the pending arms sales to Taiwan. I would think that's a mistake, and I hope he doesn't do that.
Mr. Swenson, lastly, this summit looked more like a business summit or trade summit than a relationship-building summit. Your take?
I think you're right, and I think this was, they tried to focus on trade. They didn't really talk about tariffs, which I thought was interesting, and I think, on one hand, it was good. Keep your friends close and keep your enemies closer is a term we use a lot, and so I think diplomacy is necessary. They talked about some economic stuff, but look, Xi promised to buy more soybeans. He's done that 3 times already, so I'm not sure he'll actually come through and deliver, because I think he just I think he just makes promises without any effort at fulfilling those commitments. I also thought it was great that President Trump brought up Jimmy Lai, the jailed journalist and activist in Hong Kong. Good for President Trump for bringing that up. The response from Xi was very chilly, which I just think demonstrates again that Xi can't be trusted, and I think the contrast between Xi and great people like Jimmy Lai and great presidents like President Trump are pretty obvious at this point.
Swenson, it's good to see you, but one last word from you.
Yeah.
In terms of optics, who do you think it favored more, Trump or Xi?
Oh, definitely President Trump. I think that, the fact that he still demonstrating optimism and saying nice things about Xi, whereas I think, you know, Xi maintained a bit of coldness. So, you know, A for effort on both of their parts, but the fact that, you know, again, no news is good news.
No news is good news indeed. Greg Swenson, good to see you. Thank you for talking to us today.
Thanks for having me. Great to be here.